All right, we are live, Lauren. Hold on just a second. We're going to give us a few seconds. We'll see if we get some audience members there, and then I'll hit the go button.
Heck yeah.
All right.
Heck yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sales Grammar Podcast, where we discuss all things leadership and sales. I am your host, Lauren.
And I'm just riding shotgun today. I'm Sundance.
Today's topic is going to be on leadership traits. I think it's a great follow-up for our last episode. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. The topic then was the difference between a leader and a manager. We're just going to go a little bit more in depth on the leadership traits that we discussed 2 weeks ago. If you haven't already, we do have a blog post on this topic. Just check out Sales Grammar. It's just www.salesgrammar.com. Under the blog tab, you'll be able to kind of follow along with what we're going to talk about here today.
I love it. I love this stuff.
Me too. So in no particular order, let's start with the first trait. Number one, leaders, they know their style of leadership. I guess kind of in a way, the personality tests, you have the Briggs and Myers test. You have what I grew up learning, which was the 4 temperaments by the great Greek physician Hippocrates. I believe that's how you say his name. Yep. You have the...
He wasn't a hypocrite. He was Hippocrates, right?
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, basically with that one, he just kind of took, your main traits and he separated them into 4 sections. So you have the choleric, which is your more aggressive personality type. They tend to be the type of people that, I guess, they always have to be right, if you want to put it in a not so nice way. I mean, then you have the sanguine. I like to refer to those types of people that like to woohoo a lot. Like they're always like woohoo, like high on life type of personality.
High energy, go-getters.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm sanguine for sure. And you're a mix of all of them. I'm sanguine, mostly sanguine, and then a little bit of phlegmatic. Those are my main 2. And a phlegmatic, if I could compare it to an animal, it would be a golden retriever. So they're very loyal, very chill personality. Okay. So like I said, I kind of go in between the 2. And then you have your melancholy. They tend to be the more serious personality type. If I could link them to a color, it'd be blue. But Sundance, I know you created your own type of personality analysis. Do you want to kind of go into depth about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So my sales system revolves around these personality types. And even though like we use that to kind of connect with somebody on a sales level, I think it's also important as a leadership team to identify like, hey, what's my personality type and who on my team, is this personality type? And then really, sales is all about communications. In fact, when I'm out there doing like college recruiting, people ask, hey, how come you're not recruiting, people with accounting degrees or business degrees? I really target people with psychology and communications degrees, because I think that the heart of sales is really just getting to know someone and communicating effectively with them. So for me, the radical red, and I like a good alliteration, the radical red is that outgoing, kind of jovial personality who more often than not would probably lead with like maybe like a like perspective. So they might make friends with somebody and they will use that likability, charismatic. So people like them and they want to impress them and they want to do what they do. And that type of personality tends to be someone who is a little more self-centered though. So when your leadership team is, that radical red, you may have a tendency to say things like, hey, I want to do this. I want to help accomplish this goal instead of we, and making a kind of collective. I also have something called a business brown, who is very much just by the numbers and goal oriented and can lose touch with the personalities and what's a personal goal. Like it's all about the team goal and what the business goal is. I have a boo blue who is very much like very empathetic, and their leadership style is much more hey, how do I have a conversation with you, Lauren? How do
Mhm.
we figure out your goals? And they tend to lose sight of the group goals and focus too much on the interpersonal relationships. And then I also have something called a geeky green, who is very analytical, no emotion whatsoever. Their leadership style is just very cut and dry. The
Mhm.
numbers dictate that we do this, so here's what action we have to take. And I think that the way that you describe the four temperaments and the way that I describe them, like there's a lot of overplay there.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of overlay, and those aren't even the only two systems. I think I've
No.
seen probably a dozen different systems. Some of them involve like types of sea animals. There's one where
Yep.
there's like a magician and a knight and a warrior
Yeah.
and a sovereign leader. And
Yeah.
I think the labels are all interesting.
Mhm.
And it doesn't really matter to me which system you use, as long as you have a system and you self-identify and you try to get better.
Right. And then kind of like what you said earlier, you kind of get to know the other types of leadership, other types of personalities, and you can use that when it comes to, you know, delegating who gets what when it comes to separating work for a project in the
Hmm.
workplace, or I mean, just to keep the peace in the workplace. Because I mean, if you have, like, for my terms with the four temperaments, if you have a choleric and a melancholy, like they are two very different spectrums, like sides of the coin. So there could be a lot of tension there. But if you have a leader that's a cleric and they understand the melancholy mentality, you know,
Hmm.
it just makes things a lot easier in the workplace, less tension, and you can be more productive and get more work done.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. So in the four temperaments, who is the leader who leads by like the iron fist? Because that's definitely like a leadership style that I have seen where, it's my way or the highway. And I referenced earlier, like the warrior's mentality. Where do you
Mm-hmm.
think that falls in the four temperaments?
Definitely the choleric. Like I said
Hmm.
earlier, they're the I'm always right. It's
Hmm.
kind of a negative way of putting it. It's
Yeah.
not always a bad thing. But yeah, they tend to be the ones that are more hard headed. It's my way or the highway. I'm always right. You're talking back to me, even though they're not. They're just trying to give their opinion. Like,
Hmm.
those are some of the, I guess, negative traits of the cleric. But clerics tend to be huge go getters.
Hmm.
Um, Very ambitious people. And I
Yeah.
mean, all of the personality types are ambitious, but they just show it in different ways. So for the cleric, yeah, they'd be more of, I kind of link them to the color red.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, just very powerful, very like, this is how we're going to do it. No ifs, ands, or buts.
So I think you and I are probably of a similar style, like in temperament, but and we definitely have our preferences. Like I'm not a
Mhm.
big fan of the my way or the highway type of a leadership. But just to play
I'm not
devil's
either.
advocate here, because if we just agreed, for the next 10 or 15 minutes, and that's all this is really about 10 or 15 minutes, I
Yeah.
think it would be kind of boring. So let me play devil's advocate here for just a minute and say that type of leader gets things done. So that
Right.
type of leader, that strong, authoritative leader, can accomplish quite a bit, even though they might have to be a jerk to get it done. So does the end justify the means? And there's some cases when that's not true, or some cases when that is true. What do you think?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, you can have a cleric that's just super aggressive about things. And for me, as a sanguine, I like to have fun, but I'm also phlegmatic. So, I'm chill. Like if you come to me and you're like, hey, can you please do this for me? I'll be like, heck yeah, I got you. Thank you so much for, being calm. Like I need calm. If you start coming at me like, get this done right now, and you're like choking me and all that, not that really happens. But like that's how I feel like,
Right.
you're just coming at me really strong. Like I just feel, ooh, like I can't breathe in here. It's hot in here. I don't want to get things done. It
Hmm.
makes me less motivated. It stresses me out, and it makes me just want to, shut my computer off and walk away.
Okay.
So yeah.
And at what point in time does a manager become a leader, or at what point in time does the person in charge? Because at some point in time, like if you're in charge, you just have the title, but you're not necessarily a leader yet. Where does that line happen for you? When does somebody become a leader?
So it's funny that you asked that. So that's actually my number two for the top leadership traits. Um, respects A leader respects his or her team. I
Hmm.
think that's when, because, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, or last episode, a manager, they just manage. They don't care about their team. It's
Hmm.
almost like a power trip sometimes, not every time, but most of the time you tend to see like a power hungry trait. They're not really, they just don't care about their team, how they feel. They just want stuff to get done so they can look good. It's all about them.
Right.
So whenever a leader makes it all about their team, or whenever a manager makes it all about their team, that's whenever they become a true leader, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Um, so like I said, with our number two being respects his or her team, I feel like a leader wants to be liked, trusted, and respected. But you know that rule, do unto others as you want done unto you. You need to also show your clients, or I'm sorry, your teammates,
Hmm. I
trust.
think of my teammates, like if I'm the manager or the leader, I think of them as my clients. So I think that
Right.
that verbiage actually works, even though
Right.
maybe you thought it was a faux pas there, but I think of the folks who work with me as clients.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just depends, who's watching this, what is their workplace like? Some people work for themselves, some people work for somebody else, but they are in a leadership position. So yeah,
Okay.
I could see either way. But yeah, definitely, I think, if a leader wants to be liked, trusted, and respected, he's got to like, trust, and respect his teammates in return first before the other way around.
Got it.
Um,
So somewhere on your list there, do you have the buzzword servant leadership? Because that's been kind of a buzz for the last decade, it seems like. And a lot of leaders say like, "Oh, I'm a servant leader," but not necessarily. If you ask them what that means, they may not give you a good definition. But what you just described for me kind of sounds like servant leadership when you put somebody else's needs above yours or somebody else's goals above yours. Does that vibe with what you were thinking? Are you comfortable with
yeah,
that term? Is that still relevant right now?
exactly. And yes, I definitely think it is. With the last few years of my leadership training, that's just all I would hear.
Hmm.
All Literally every minute, every hour, I'd sit through those 10, 12-hour long seminars, and I would just hear every so often serving leadership, like serve others. So yeah, that's definitely a huge thing. I feel like it always has been.
Hmm.
Um, but now it's just there's like a huge breakthrough with that.
Okay,
So
good.
for sure.
What's
So
next on your list? What do you have? Number three.
yes, moving on to number three, a true leader promotes team building and wellness. So kind of in a sense with the whole serving,
Hmm.
I feel like a true leader really needs to get to know their team. They need to show their team that they care. Um, you know, it just forms an overall better, happier work environment. You might even see like your team's productivity will improve drastically. Like go bowling, go see a movie, happy hour even. I mean, of course it depends on the workplace and the rules, and
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
just depends on all of that, but
I think in the
it,
sales world, those kinds of outings are normal. Those are fairly commonplace, and
right,
it kind of goes back to that old adage: they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care,
exactly.
kind of a
Yeah.
thing.
No, for sure. And I think, besides just going out and having fun or doing like team building events, I think it's super important for a leader to, when you have your one on ones with your clients or your team members, and, you're kind of giving each other 360 feedback, like, hey, I like how you're doing this. Maybe you should work on this. And then vice versa, the team member back to the leader. I like how
Hmm.
you're doing this, but maybe next time you should do this instead. I feel like during that one on one time, that would be a great time to also get to know that client better as well personally. I mean, you could
Hmm.
do that when you're going bowling or seeing a movie or whatever, but I feel like that one-on-one time, like that's when you can have those true intimate talks because you're not in a group. It's just,
Sure.
you and the other person. So I feel like that also helps a lot.
I think the one-on-one coaching sessions, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a coaching session, but just that interaction, that attention, goes a long, long ways. And being intentional with that time,
Yeah, yeah,
instead of just letting it happen, have a plan of action, have something that you want to accomplish during that interaction. That's what I mean by making it intentional. A lot of folks will just kind of wing it And as a leader, you don't have that luxury of just winging it anymore. So if
Right.
you have that team outing, let's say you have a bowling event, kind of a thing. So on your agenda that evening is like, hey, I need to talk to, Sally or Bob or, whoever it is, and kind of like get a gauge, are they satisfied with the work that they're doing right now? Am I giving them enough responsibility? Can I get the feeling for the group? Who's the floor leader? Very often, as I'm leading a group, it's very important for me to figure out who that second tier is. And then we haven't discussed it yet, and we've only got a few minutes here, but I think that the end result, and I may be jumping ahead because I don't know what else you have on your list yet. We didn't share it ahead of time. I think it makes the conversation more interesting. But
Okay.
but I think that the ultimate, evolving of a leader is creating more leaders. So
Yes.
number one, like, hey, I want to be a servant leader. I want to, your success is my success. But how we go full circle with that is how do I create other leaders who can carry this on to the next stage? And those one-on-ones, I have to gauge who's ready to take that next step. And then I always have like what I call, my core group, who, might be my floor leaders, who I give, a little bit of information to ahead of time and say, okay, here's what's going on. Give me your feedback. And when I do that, they're bought into it. So if
Yeah.
I talk to the team and decide, hey, we want to get rid of these types of clients or shift the direction of our marketing, or make some kind of a significant change in our business, product wise even, if I get them bought in first, then I know when I release it to everybody else, they're going to ask the right questions, because not everybody else is going to know, and they'll be advocates for me. And
Right.
then I can teach them as well. Okay, here's how we do this. Here's how you coach. Here's how you do those things, and they get to see the inner workings, and they're just bought in more. And I think that's crucial to getting a team to run on all four cylinders.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And I kind of have that written, but not so much with the top five, with my top five traits, but we are going to get there, and you'll
Okay.
see when.
All right. I just get passionate about it, so
No,
I
you're
jumped
good.
in.
No,
All
I
right.
love that.
What
All
else do you
right.
got?
All right, so yeah, two more. So number 4, a leader is accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So when your team makes a mistake, in corporate, you have a project. In corporate America, you have a project. I mean, anywhere, you have a project. And, it's a leader's job to kind of be the middleman before you take that project and bring it to said client, or, your leader, or,
Sure.
just whoever that project needs to go to, the
Mm-hmm.
final destination. Um, it's inevitable. There's always going to be a time where the project's just not good. It's someone messed up somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And, kind of like the difference between a manager and a leader. A manager will point fingers and be like, that wasn't me, that was them. But a leader understands, like, hey, I represent the team. I am not above the team. I am the team. And it's a leader's job. Like, they're supposed to oversee what's going on. So if they're not double checking, their clients or their coworkers, double checking their work, working with them, even
Mm-hmm.
letting them feel that they can come to them to ask questions, it's on them. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I,
definitely.
I agree. I often see sales managers early on in their career fall into this trap. They'll say
Mhm.
things like, "Hey, that's not my fault," and they'll try to
Yep.
place blame. And blame in our industry is like that's the kiss of death right there. So
Mhm.
instead of placing blame, replace that with responsibility. So I will take responsibility for that, and that works with senior level management if something falls through, or
Right.
with clients. And trust me, I know. I've been in the game for 20 years, and there are many clients that I've had to call and say, "Hey, I'm going to take responsibility for this," and then
Mhm.
offer a solution. And I will tell you, like your direct reports, if you're a sales manager, will appreciate that, and that's how you earn that trust and respect,
For
is
sure.
by taking responsibility for something that goes wrong and giving credit when something goes right.
For
So
sure.
that is a big portion of what it means to be a leader instead of a manager. So I agree with that point. 1,000%.
For sure. Yeah, no, I feel like, if I'm in leadership and I have two really good clients of mine, and one of them, or they both are interested in leadership as well, I would definitely prioritize moving up the one that made a mistake and owned up to it versus the one that, stayed perfect the whole time, just because that shows me that, hey, they took the initiative to take the blame, and they recognize like, hey, like they are not above their team, they are a part of their team, and it
And
was
they didn't
part of
take the
that
blame.
person's responsibility.
They took responsibility.
They took
Yeah.
responsibility. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. I
All
think
right.
the words matter, and that word blame for some reason for
Yeah.
me is like fingernails on the chalkboard,
Yeah. Blame. Yeah.
right? All
All
right,
right.
Number 5. What do
Number
you got?
5. All right. So leader is always learning. There is no such thing as a perfect leader.
Mm,
A leader is always learning, be it by reading books, listening to podcasts. Heck, I mean, there's a ton of free information on YouTube. Thousands and thousands and thousands of videos on sales, leadership, wellness, however you want to better yourself. I mean, it's all there.
100%. So somebody right now was watching this at some point in the future, and they just learned the 5 tips of leadership, and they were learning. So that's very meta of us. So I love it. I did not this last year, but the year before, I read a book a week, and it was my mission to learn as much as I could during that calendar year, and by reading other authors. And that's one way to do it. But learning is not always just about reading. You can, like you mentioned, go to YouTube or go to seminars. Yeah,
Seminars.
you were talking earlier about seminars that you were doing, and leadership
Mhm.
training courses. You can go to camps. You can if you are the type of person that needs to get away for 4 days, they have some amazing leadership courses. So the American Management Association, AMA, I'm not sure if I got the verbiage right, but it's the AMA. They're out of Atlanta, I think. They've got some fantastic courses. We're not sponsored by them, but I've been through several of their courses. Their leadership courses are fantastic. And there's something like that for everyone.
Yep,
So figure out what's the best way for you to learn and continue to
sure.
do that. And that's also what is that? Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Successful People. I think the 7th habit is sharpening the saw, which is always learning.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that book. It's been a while since I've read that one.
It's a good one.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All
All right.
right. Awesome.
Fantastic dialogue today. I love the back and forth that we've got. I actually like it when you don't tell me exactly what you're going to go over, because then I get to react real time a little bit. And
Yeah.
I took some notes, and I've got my sheet here of everything that we wanted to go through. So it's exciting. And thank you for letting me play devil's advocate a little bit with you, because
I love
I think it's good to go back and forth.
I love
All right.
it. No, for sure. All righty. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up.
Sounds good.
All right.
What's the website again?
Oh, so check out www.salesgrammar.com. We're going to end it here with our quote of the week. And this is what I was saying was going to tie back with what you were saying earlier.
Beautiful.
So it's a quote by Ronald Reagan. The greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things. So, I mean, in a way, it's kind of like what you were saying earlier. A leader wants to build and create more leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So he was kind of indirectly saying that.
That's beautiful. One of the great things, and one of the reasons to get into leadership, I think, is not for personal glory, but to extend your influence through other folks. So I can only do so much good myself, but if I was able to inspire someone else to do good or accomplish things, then I think that's a true mark of a leader. So that's good. All right. Great show, Lauren. I appreciate you as always. To the audience out there, we'll see you next week. We're doing this next week, right?
Yes. So we're gonna do this next Monday. I believe the topic is. You know what? I'm gonna surprise you guys.
All right. Sounds good.
You got to wait till next week to figure out the topic.
All right. Yeah. Signing off.
All right. Bye, guys.